the galaxy screamed. Not through sound, but through the tremor of reality itself. In the black vacuum between the stars, the Imperium convulsed, twisting in ways even the chaos gods found unfamiliar. Something ancient, something alien to both warp and matter, was pressing through the void. Deep within the segmentum obscurus, a dead world named Varnath 9 flickered to life. For 10,000 years, its surface had been nothing but a graveyard of blackened steel and ossified corpses. But now, under the blood-colored aurora of the warp storms, an obsidian gate rose from the sands, silent, smooth, and etched with sigils no inquisitor could decipher. From that gate came the chill. Not the natural cold of space, but the sterile stillness of a tomb. When the first scouting servitors approached, their machine spirits wailed and died. Vox transmissions warped into whispers, ancient incantations carried in a voice that was neither demon nor mortal. Then the figure stepped through. Clad in black robes that rippled like liquid shadow, his skeletal hand clutched a staff carved with runes of death. 2 red orbs burned in the hollows of his skull, glowing with a cold intelligence that pierced through the warp itself. His name echoed across time and reality. Ainz Ooal Gown. The Sorcerer King of another dimension had come, drawn by curiosity and amusement, yet also by hunger, an endless, methodical desire to understand domination itself. In the skies above Varnath 9, the Adeptus Mechanicus fleet registered impossible energy readings. Tech priests spoke of quantum fractures, spatial paradoxes, and non-warp necromantic radiation. None of it mattered. Their auspex screens filled with a single blinding glyph, a skeletal sigil surrounded by 41 burning orbs. Ainz stood upon the world's cracked surface, his robe untouched by the storm. He raised his hand and murmured a single phrase. Grasp heart. The planet's remaining life forms, feral mutants, corrupted servitors, chaos-tainted scavengers, fell dead in unison. Their souls tore free in streaks of light, sucked into the endless void around him. The God Emperor's own psychic beacon flickered for a heartbeat as if disturbed by the arrival of a power foreign to the warp itself. The Imperium's high lords argued in terror. Was it a new chaos god? A tyrannid hive mind mutation? Or something older, something that had waited beyond creation until now? And in the eye of terror, even the ruined powers stirred. Nurgle paused his laughter. Tsench's flames rippled uncertainly. Khorne clenched his brass fists, confused yet intrigued. Only Slaanesh smiled, whispering through silk and shadow, a new player joins the game. On Varnath 9, Ainz gazed at the stars, unfazed, calculating, amused. This world reeks of order built on madness. Let us test their gods, Demiurge. Let us see if this emperor truly reigns beyond death. Behind him, the air cracked open again, and from it poured Nazarick, the great tomb reborn, hovering in the void like a Gothic citadel of obsidian bones and golden fire. Undead armies marched forth, their banners fluttering in void winds. The invasion had begun, not one of conquest for land or faith, but for knowledge, power, and perhaps something far worse. Ainz Ooal Gown had come to the 41st millennium, and the galaxy would learn that death itself had found a new master. When the Astronomicon flickered, 1,000 psychers screamed in unison. The beacon of the God Emperor, that eternal psychic flame burning in the warp to guide humanity through darkness, stuttered as if smothered by an unseen hand. Across Terra's sanctums, the Adeptus Astra Telepathica wailed and bled from their eyes. The high lords of Terra froze. To falter was unthinkable. To dim was impossible. Yet, for a heartbeat, all the galaxy went blind. That was when the signal appeared, cold, mathematical, and utterly alien to the warp. In the Segmentum Solar, aboard the battle barge Herald of Dawn, Inquisitor Altheon Varus leaned over the hololith, staring at the impossible readings. Cross-dimensional energy pattern, sustained necrothomic resonance, his Muggos assistant rasped. It defies the laws of warp and matter. Varus clenched his gloved fist. Track it. My lord, the Muggos hesitated. It originates from the world. Varnith 9. The Inquisitor's eyes narrowed. That world was a corpse. Nothing lived there since the Horus heresy. Yet, the Auspex showed a structure forming, a fortress of monumental scale, black as the void, surrounded by energy fields shaped like tomb sigils. And within those walls, an army of the dead marched in perfect formation. Meanwhile, inside the great tomb of Nazarik's new manifestation, Ainz Ooal Gown sat upon his throne, surrounded by the glow of endless arcane glyphs. Demiurge knelt before him, his spectacles gleaming like shards of hellfire. My lord, he said with a sinister smile. The scouting demons have returned. The dominant faction calls itself the Imperium of Men, primitive, yet vast. A theocracy built upon the worship of a dead god. Ain's glowing eyes dimmed and flared again, a motion like the narrowing of eyelids. A dead god worshipped as eternal, amusing. And yet their light rivals my own power in reach. Albedo stepped forward, her wings glinting with oily black feathers. Allow me to destroy their false prophets, my lord. I will hang their banners in your honor. Not yet, Ainz replied, his voice calm, deliberate, deftly measured. We must first observe. Learn. The dead god may yet speak. In the void beyond the fortress walls, the Imperial Navy arrived. A fleet of Gothic-class cruisers surrounded Varnith 9 in a crescent formation, launching sensor drones and torpedoes blessed with the sigils of the ecclesiarchy. The captains whispered prayers as they approached the black world, unaware that their words of faith would be swallowed by something colder than chaos. When the first torpedo struck the surface, it did not explode. It stopped. Frozen midair, its metal surface corroded into dust before touching the ground. The servitors aboard the ship screamed through the Vox. Unknown interference. Reality, disassembling, and then silence. On the planet's surface, Ainz raised his staff. A shimmering blue field expanded from his skeletal fingers, and the torpedo's remains dissolved into motes of silver. Such fragile toys, he mused. Their weapons hum with faith instead of reason. Demiurge chuckled. Then let us offer them despair instead of faith. Moments later, the undead legions of Nazarik advanced, death knights in golden armor, wraith archmages chanting from behind spectral veils, and bone dragons swirling overhead. Each step they took cracked the blackened soil, bleeding violet light. The very world seemed to awaken to serve Ain's command. From orbit, the Imperial fleet opened fire. Thousands of macrocannon shells, each the size of hat blocks, fell from the heavens. Yet not one reached the ground. Ainz lifted his hand again. Perfect defense barrier, activate. An invisible sphere shimmered, and every shell disintegrated upon contact. The night sky flashed with silent explosions, turning the horizon into a mural of impotent fury. On the flagship Herald of Dawn, Inquisitor Varus watched in disbelief. What, in the name of the Emperor, is that? Unknown defensive magic, Lord Inquisitor, the Muggos stammered. It is not warp-based. It registers as pure data logic manifested into physical law. Varus turned slowly. Then we are fighting a machine god. Not a machine, the Muggos whispered. A necrodigital god. Living death. As if answering him, the Vox systems burst into static, and through it came a voice, smooth, regal, resonant with ancient power. People of the Imperium, it said. I am Ainz Ooal Gown. I seek an audience with your emperor. The bridge fell silent. Every crewman froze. Even the ship's machine spirit growled in confusion. Then Varys whispered, he dares speak of the emperor. But Ainz continued, calm and unbothered, his words echoing across every ship in the fleet. If he truly reigns over death, then let him answer me. In that instant, every astropath aboard the Imperial ships convulsed. A surge of psychic backlash roared through the warp, as if the Emperor himself had turned his gaze toward this new invader. For a fraction of a second, the Imperium howled in unison, and then fell utterly still. Ainz felt it. That ancient, holy will pressing through the void like the weight of a dying star. He smiled. How fascinating, he murmured. A god who burns even in death. Let us see whose dominion endures longer, his or mine. In the endless blackness above, the eye of terror pulsed once, brighter than it had in millennia. Khorne laughed. Tsench whispered. Nurgle stirred. And Slaanesh purred in delight. The galaxy itself held its breath. Ainz Ooal Gown, overlord of Nazarick, had declared war upon the divine. The void split open above Varnith 9, and from it came the space marines, the angels of death, clad in ceramite and faith. The blood ravens, scholars of the battlefield and seekers of forbidden knowledge, were first to arrive. Their strike cruiser Sanctity of Dawn descended through the corrupted skies, its hull ablaze with the fury of atmospheric re-entry. Captain Leontes Varric stood in the hangar bay, helmet in hand, eyes fixed on the infernal glow rising from the world below. The Emperor's light trembles here, he muttered. Something beyond chaos stirs. Chaplain Gaius answered with a growl. Then we shall remind it who rules this galaxy. The drop pods launched like burning meteors, slamming into the blackened soil around Nazarick's new fortress. The ground cracked, and ash burst into flame where they landed. From each pod, armored giants emerged, bolters roaring, purity seals flapping like banners of faith. But the enemy did not flee. Instead, from the shimmering darkness came death knights, towering undead warriors clad in gold and bone. Their eyes burned with spectral flame, and their weapons, great swords forged from cursed steel, hummed with necromantic energy. When they met the blood ravens, the world itself seemed to quake. Bolter fire tore into the ranks of the undead, shattering bone and armor alike, but every fallen knight reassembled, limbs twisting back together in impossible patterns. Leontes roared, by the Emperor. They reform. Then strike harder, shouted Gaius, smashing a skull with his Crozius, only to see it regenerate, jaws gnashing in silent laughter. Above the battlefield, the sky darkened again, this time, not from clouds, but from wings. Dozens of undead dragons circled overhead, raining green flame that burned through armor and soul alike. Ainz watched the chaos unfold from the obsidian balcony of his citadel. His glowing eyes flickered with detached curiosity. So these are the Emperor's angels, he mused. Beautiful in their resolve, yet tragically fragile. Demiurge appeared beside him, smiling. Shall I deploy the blazing archons, my lord? Not yet, Ainz replied. Let them fight. Let them believe their faith protects them. Only when hope burns brightest should we snuff it out. Below, Captain Leontes activated his jump pack, launching himself skyward. He aimed straight for the citadel, intent on slaying the sorcerer commanding this abomination. "For the Emperor," he shouted, his sword blazing with holy flame. Ainz turned slightly, his skeletal hand raised. "Stop." Time itself froze. The fire hung motionless, the smoke halted midair, and even the sound of bolter fire fell silent. Ainz walked through the stillness, observing Leontes like a collector examining a rare insect. "You fight with courage," Ainz said softly. "But courage is a spark easily extinguished." He touched Leontes' chest plate. The armor cracked, the flames died, and the captain's body withered to ash before his soul could even scream. When time resumed, the ashes fell. The blood ravens froze in horror. Their captain was gone. Gaius fell to his knees, gripping his rosarius, muttering desperate prayers. "Emperor, guide us, what manner of god have we angered?" From the fortress, Ainz's voice echoed across the battlefield, calm, regal, undeniable. "I seek only knowledge. Yet you answer with war. Then let war be your teacher." The ground split open, and the first overlords of Nazareth rose, hulking undead constructs crowned in flame and shadow. Their arrival sent psychic shockwaves through the warp itself, and across the galaxy, 1,000 astropaths screamed as if their minds were being devoured. The Imperium had faced chaos, tyrannids, and necrons, but never a mind that could twist both life and death to his whim without warp or god. Inquisitor Varus, still in orbit, clenched his teeth as the feed from the surface went dark. "So this is the invader," he whispered. "He commands death without demons, as if he is the warp, yet apart from it." He turned to his aide. "Send word to Terra. Tell them, the galaxy has met a god that does not belong." And far below, amidst the ashes of Varnath 9, Ainz Ooal Gown looked up through the flames, his crimson eyes fixed upon the stars. "If this emperor of theirs still watches," he murmured, "then let him see what true dominion looks like." The warp stirred like a storm disturbed by something alien. No psychic could sleep, no demon could rest. Even the immortal madness of chaos found itself whispering in confusion. For the first time in a millennium, their eternal war within the Imperium paused, not out of fear, but out of curiosity. At the center of that great swirling insanity, where thoughts became matter and emotion became monsters, the Chaos Gods convened. Upon his throne of brass and skulls, Khorne roared, his voice shaking dimensions. "Another usurper dares trespass upon our realms. Who defies the creed of blood and death?" Across from him, coiled in shimmering paradox, Tsench chuckled, 1,000 mouths speaking in layered riddles. "Defies? No, dear Khorne. He rewrites. He kills without rage, corrupts without joy. His power is not born of chaos, but of calculated order." In his garden of rot, Nurgle turned from his bubbling cauldron, the sweet stench of decay filling the endless void. "He brings new sickness, little brother. His touch turns life to silence. Not disease, not pain, just nothingness. How dull. How delightful." And from the velvet darkness, Slainish purred, draped upon an obsidian dais carved from the bones of forgotten angels. "A god of death who feels nothing. Oh, how exquisite. I must taste his despair." The warp trembled, and from its folds rose a shimmering vision, Ainz Ooal Gown, projected into the chaos sea like a silhouette of bone and fire. He stood unbothered, observing the four horrors of eternity with calm, unblinking poise. "So these are the gods of this realm," he said, his tone analytical, almost disappointed. "Disorder given form. Ambition without restraint. Khorne slammed his axe down, splitting an entire continent of screaming skulls. Mortal wizard. You dare address us as equals? I address you as curiosities, Ainz replied. You are inefficient. A silence fell that no mortal mind could comprehend. Then laughter, terrible, infinite laughter, rolled through the warp. Tzeentch's flames turned violet as he leaned closer, his serpentine heads shifting in and out of reality. Inefficient, he says. Tell me, Overlord, how do you claim dominion without corruption? What stirs your will if not chaos? Control, Ainz answered simply. You enslave creation through madness. I command it through understanding. Slaanisha's smile widened. Understanding, then. And what of desire, pretty skeleton? Do you not crave power? Worship? The adoration of those beneath you. Ainz turned his crimson gaze toward her, the glowing pinpricks of light flaring like twin stars. I have followers who would die for me without hesitation. Yet I seek not their love, only their efficiency. Emotion clouds judgment. I prefer loyalty built on perfection. Nurgle's laughter came as a wave of bubbling joy. So cold, so empty, so unnatural. You do not decay, you do not grow, you only persist. You are a disease of stillness. Perhaps, Ainz mused. But even rot must obey entropy. And entropy, he said softly, obeys me. For the first time, the warp quivered in submission. The storm around Ainz quieted, its violent energies freezing into crystalline fragments of reality. The chaos gods felt it, his control, his unnatural detachment. He wasn't a demon, nor a god. He was a foreign equation written into their endless chaos, one that refused to balance. Khorne snarled, his rage dimming into something dangerously close to unease. Leave our realm, necromancer. Your order has no place here. I did not come to stay, Ainz replied, lifting his staff. Only to look upon the heart of your empire. Then he pointed toward the boiling horizon of the warp, the golden light that marked Terra's psychic beacon. Your war has consumed this galaxy for eons, yet the one thing you cannot break still burns there. The Emperor. I will see how deep his divinity runs. Slaanisha's laughter turned to a hiss. You will be torn apart. Perhaps, Ainz said, stepping back into shadow. But I have died before. The warp collapsed inward like a star imploding, and in an instant, he was gone. Back in real space, the Inquisition received reports of psychic storms on 1,000 worlds. Astropaths muttered his name in delirium. The Bone King, they called him. The death that judges. On the bridge of the Herald of Dawn, Inquisitor Varys felt his heart freeze as a transmission appeared on the hololith, a simple sigil of skeletal hands surrounding a burning throne. And beneath it, a single message pulsed in golden script. Tell your emperor, his throne shall soon have company. The message spread like wildfire across the Imperium. Panic rose among the ecclesiarchy, defiance among the Astartes, curiosity among the Mechanicus. But in the eye of terror, the chaos gods stirred uneasily. For though they mocked his arrogance, none could shake the truth. Ainz Ooal Gown had entered their realm and left untouched. And worse, he had learned something while he was there. The world of Mars burned red, not from war, but from worship. Beneath the endless skies of rust and static lightning, the Adeptus Mechanicus toiled in ceaseless rhythm. Factories older than human memory screamed hymns of devotion to the Omnissiah, each spark and piston a prayer. But that night, the hymns faltered. On the deepest sublevel of the Noctis Forge, a machine priest named Muggos Eltrian watched his cogitator arrays convulse in chaotic seizure. Symbols of no known pattern flickered across the screens, skeletal runes, impossible fractal geometry, and a voice whispering in binary. Logic equals death. Error, soul detected. Conversion, inevitable. He froze. Such patterns did not exist in any data archive of the Mechanicus. They moved, not like code, but like something alive, breathing, pulsing, watching. Then came the sound. Not from his vox, not from any mechanical output, but from inside his mind. Muggos Eltrian. You seek truth through metal. But truth rots in flesh. Shall I show you what comes after? He fell to his knees, cables writhing from his back like serpents. Who speaks through the machine? The answer came as a surge of power that blew half the sector's systems into blackness. From the smoke and flickering light, a silhouette stepped forth, tall, cloaked in black and gold, crowned with horns of bone. His eyes burned crimson. I am Ainz Ooal Gown, the voice echoed. And I seek your omniscience. Eltrian's synthetic heart trembled. The omniscience is the Emperor. The machine god made flesh. Ainz tilted his head. A god of machines that cannot repair his own decaying form. Fascinating. He raised a skeletal hand, and from his fingers burst tendrils of black light, streams of data interlaced with necromantic energy. They slithered into the walls, into the networks, into the core of Mars itself. Across the planet, thousands of servitors froze mid-task. Forges flickered. Mechanicus priests screamed as their augmetic eyes filled with alien symbols. The binary of death had entered the noosphere. Eltrian tried to resist, chanting canticles of purification. But the words twisted in his mouth, melting into new liturgies. The flesh is weak, but the soul is weakest. The machine endures, but the grave is eternal. Ainz watched impassively. You worship logic, Muggos. Yet you do not understand that logic ends in stillness. In the perfect zero. In me. Within moments, 1,000 tech priests went silent. Their machines continued to operate, but their eyes, those that still had flesh, were empty. Their minds had been rewritten into something Ainz called necromantic, machines that obeyed not faith, but his will. The news spread rapidly through the Martian hierarchy. The Fabricator General himself demanded answers. Orbital sensors confirmed a distortion above the planet's northern hemisphere, a sphere of darkness feeding on the solar radiation. From that void descended a fleet. But not a chaos fleet, nor Tyranids, nor Necrons. These ships were of Nazaric design, massive Gothic vessels adorned with crimson runes, surrounded by spectral skeletons that drifted through void space as if swimming in water. Their presence warped communication frequencies, killing servitors with psychic overload. The Adeptus Mechanicus prepared for war. Titans awoke, plasma cannons charged, Scitarii legions assembled. And then, silence. Every machine on Mars stopped. Even the storms ceased. From the void above, a whisper rolled down like thunder. I require no war. Only understanding. The great red planet shuddered as one of the forge spires split open. From within emerged a colossal figure, the Fabricator General, wrapped in gold and steel, chanting binary prayers. Entity of death. Withdraw. You trespass upon the realm of the omniscience. Ainz appeared before him, walking through the molten air as though it were mist. Your god is a corpse, he said softly. Your machines worship silence, and your faith binds you to rust. But I can offer you something greater, immortality without decay. The Fabricator General raised his weapon, a mechanized staff crowned with the sigil of the machine god. Heresy. You are data corruption given form. Perhaps, Ainz replied. But corruption is simply evolution unapproved by the weak. With a motion too fast for organic perception, Ainz's staff struck the ground. Waves of necromantic fire surged outward, consuming entire factories in seconds. But instead of destruction, transformation followed. Machines rose from the ashes, animated by ghostly light, their servitors reborn as soul-forged automatons. The Fabricator General fell to his knees, watching as his empire turned into an army of undying steel. You have rewritten the divine code, he gasped. I have improved it, Ainz said, voice calm and final. By the time the Adeptus Mechanicus regained contact with their networks, it was too late. Mars no longer answered to Terra. Instead, it transmitted a new hymn through the void. The machine endures, and the dead remember. From orbit, Imperial agents witnessed the impossible, Mars glowing black, its atmosphere swirling into a vortex shaped like a skeletal hand. The Inquisition declared immediate excommunication. The Astra Militarum mobilized. The Ecclesiarchy screamed that the apocalypse had begun. But in the heart of Mars, within the reprogrammed Noctis Forge, Ainz Ooal Gown looked upon his work and whispered to himself. A world of machines, now loyal to reason. A perfect first step. And far away, within the warp, Tsench watched and laughed quietly. He builds his empire not from chaos, but from the bones of order itself. The imperial palace of Terra was silent. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of fear. Across the golden halls, cherub servitors floated nervously, their censers spilling holy incense that could no longer mask the stench of dread. The High Lords of Terra had gathered in emergency convocation, their aged faces pale beneath the flicker of lumen fire. On the hollow display before them burned an image of Mars, no longer red but black, a planet crowned in shadow, pulsing like a dying sun. Contact with the Fabricator General has ceased, declared Lord Varnan, master of the administratum. His voice cracked. Every Mechanicus forge across the segmentum solar reports new code transmissions. They bear the mark of an entity calling itself Ainz Ooal Gown. At the far end of the hall, a towering figure rose, Lord Inquisitor Halbrecht of the Ordo Malleus. His armor gleamed silver, inscribed with words older than most worlds. I have heard whispers of this being, he said grimly. It is no demon, no Xenos, no heretic. It is something outside of the warp's understanding. A god that should not exist. Blasphemy, roared the Ecclesiarch, pounding the table. There is only one true God, the Emperor. All others are lies. Halbrecht turned slowly toward him. Tell that to Mars, Your Holiness. The chamber fell silent again. The only sound was the steady pulse of the hololithic projection, showing the blackened planet, and something vast moving beneath its surface. A new voice broke the tension. Calm, measured, cold. You are all wasting time. From the shadows stepped Custodian Captain Ilarion, guardian of the Imperial Palace, gold armor scarred from 10,000 years of war. Mars has fallen. The Omnisia's children have bent the knee to a corpse in a crown of bone. The Emperor must be warned. The lords exchanged terrified glances. None dared speak of the Golden Throne, the Emperor's eternal prison. But before anyone could reply, the palace shook. A tremor, faint at first, then thunderous. Statues cracked, dust fell like ash, alarms blared in every sanctum. Servitors screamed in binary static. Vox reading, a Vox serf shouted. Something's breaching the soul gate. It's not warp translation, it's tearing through the fabric of real space itself. They rushed to the windowed chamber at the spire's peak. Beyond the shimmering force fields, Terra's night sky split open like glass. Through it descended an obsidian citadel, surrounded by spectral ships that moved in perfect, silent formation. Its core burned with ghost light. The void itself bent around it. And then, the voice came, vast, resonant, impossible to locate. It was everywhere. Terra. The throne of gods and corpses. How quaint. In that moment, every astropath on the planet convulsed and died. The image of Ainz Ooal Gown appeared above the palace, a spectral giant towering over continents. Cloaked in tattered black, crowned with a halo of cold flame, his gaze pierced the clouds. "I come not to destroy," he said, his tone almost gentle. "I come to show mercy. The Imperium is a graveyard pretending to be an empire. Its faith rots, its leaders squabble, its god sleeps. I will wake it, in my image." Halbrecht drew his demon hammer. "You speak heresy, monster." The projection's eyes turned toward him. "Heresy? No. I speak the future." From orbit, the Nazarick fleet opened its hangars. Columns of black light descended, skeletal legions encased in ceramite armor, their banners woven from shadows. They moved like clockwork, emotionless, perfect. Terra's defense lasers roared. Orbital fortresses unleashed firestorms. The void became a blinding sea of plasma. But the black light did not burn. It consumed. Every defense system struck simply vanished, as though deleted from existence. Ainz's laughter echoed across every Vox frequency. "You use machines of faith. I command faith itself." Within the palace, panic spread. Servitors turned against their masters, their implants glowing with necrotic runes. Binary prayers warped into static hymns. The Mechanicus delegation screamed as their augmetics began to twist into skeletal configurations. Halbrecht and the custodians fought through corridors of chaos, striking down reanimated servitors, their sanctified blades cutting through corrupted steel. "Seal the gates," Alarian commanded. "Protect the throne room at all costs." But even as they fought, the air shimmered. And from the shadows of the Sanctum Imperialis, he appeared, not as a god of projection, but in flesh. Ainz Ooal Gown himself, standing at the foot of the golden stairs leading to the Emperor's light. He bowed slightly. "I have come to meet the Emperor of Men." The custodians formed a golden wall before him, their halberds glowing like suns. "You will not pass," Alarian growled. Ainz raised his hand. His staff pulsed once. The light died. For the first time in millennia, the Golden Throne's chamber was swallowed by darkness. Only Ainz's eyes burned, twin rubies in the void. "Then let us see," he whispered, "which god still dreams, and which has already died." The throne room was an ocean of stillness. The air itself felt heavy, burdened by the weight of eternity. For 10,000 years, the Golden Throne had radiated the faint hum of life, an echo of the Emperor's will, a heartbeat that anchored the Imperium. But now, that hum was gone. The air was empty, the silence so deep it felt alive. Ainz Ooal Gown stood at the base of the great dais, his robes billowing in unseen winds, the staff of Ainz Ooal Gown pulsing with spectral light. Around him, the custodians held formation, though every breath they took felt stolen. Even they, the Emperor's chosen, could feel the cold truth settling in their souls. The Emperor was watching. Not as a man. Not as a corpse. But as something far beyond comprehension. A faint shimmer danced across the throne. Gold flaked away like dust in sunlight, revealing beneath it an endless void. From that void, a voice emerged, not sound, but thought, so vast that the minds of the living trembled before it. You dare walk within my silence? Ainz bowed his head slightly, a gesture of respect and defiance in equal measure. I do not walk to desecrate, he replied calmly. I walk to understand. You, Emperor, are a god of stagnation, worshipped, yet never alive. I offer a future where death is not an end, but a beginning. The air ignited. Bolts of psychic lightning split the marble floors. Custodians were flung aside like chaff. You speak of beginning, yet you are rot. Ainz's laughter was hollow, echoing like bells tolling in a tomb. Rot brings renewal. Your Imperium decays beneath your frozen hand, and still you call yourself savior. Look upon your works, Emperor. They pray to a husk. The chamber dimmed. A shape began to rise from the throne, a radiant phantom of the Emperor's soul, golden and infinite, yet cracked through with shadows. His eyes, suns forged of faith and fury, turned upon the undead monarch before him. You mock creation, Lich. You twist life into chains. Ainz raised his staff. The symbols of Nazareth ignited in midair, rings of runes that burned with impossible colors. I preserve what would be lost. My servants do not decay, do not fear. You let billions die every day in your name and call it devotion. The throne room shuddered. Reality bent. The warp itself screamed as two divine wills collided, faith against domination, life against undeath. The Emperor's light poured across the chamber, blinding and pure. Where it touched Ainz, his robes burned, bone crackled, and the runes of his magic flared crimson. But he did not falter. He whispered an incantation in a language older than time. A black sun bloomed behind him, devouring the light. The custodians fell to their knees, clutching their helmets, unable to tell which force was more divine or more terrible. You cannot comprehend my burden, the Emperor thundered. I am chained so they may live. And I, Ainz answered softly, am unchained so they may never die. The psychic shockwave tore through the galaxy. Across 1,000,000 worlds, astropaths screamed as the Astronomicon flickered. Chaos demons howled in confusion, even the dark gods turned their gaze toward Terra, sensing something unfamiliar, a new power, one neither of warp nor flesh. For the first time in eons, the Emperor's voice trembled. What are you? Ainz's skeletal face tilted upward. His eyes burned brighter. I am what your people will become when they cease to worship weakness. I am dominion without decay. I am the god you were too afraid to be. The golden throne cracked. The psychic barrier around Terra faltered. In the void, storms raged, rifts tearing open as demons, confused and terrified, were swallowed by a growing darkness that was neither chaos nor death. Ainz stepped closer to the dais, the echo of his footsteps rolling like thunder. You are a dream clinging to bones. I am the end of dreaming. And for the briefest instant, the Emperor's light flickered, not extinguished, but uncertain. The custodians stood frozen as the impossible happened, their Emperor's aura dimmed before the gaze of another god. Ainz lowered his staff. Sleep again, old king. I will tend to your garden of corpses. The psychic light imploded. The room was cast into shadow once more. When sight returned, the Emperor's form sat silent upon the throne, his expression unchanged. But something was different. The golden throne, for the first time in 10,000 years, was quiet. Ainz turned and walked away. His voice, soft yet infinite, lingered in the air. And thus, the reign of stillness begins. Outside, the sky above Terra darkened. The Astronomicon went dark. And across the galaxy, the Imperium of men began to die, quietly, beautifully, inevitably. In the endless void beyond reality, the warp screamed. The currents of madness that had danced for 10,000 years now twisted, shivering as if in pain. Something had changed. Something had entered that was not supposed to exist. Upon thrones of horror and blasphemy, the chaos gods stirred. Khorne's realm boiled first. Rivers of blood surged upward, turning into crimson storms. The blood god himself rose from his mountain of skulls, his voice ablaze across eternity. Who dares silence the Astronomicon? Who dares rob me of my war? Each roar shattered demon legions into vapor. Yet even as his fury spread, he felt it, the faint ache of power being drained away, pulled toward something colder. In the Garden of Rot, Nurgle paused his laughter. His cauldron bubbled with the stuff of creation and decay alike, but its surface now rippled with darkness. "Oh, my sweet pestilence," he crooned, peering into the blackened reflection. What creature snuffs out the Emperor's flame but is not of chaos? So beautiful, so wrong. From the depths of despair rose Slaanesh, lounging amid oceans of mirrored souls. The Prince of Excess tilted their head, eyes glimmering with cruel fascination. This new god smells of stillness. No passion, no pain. How unbearably dull. Finally, in the heart of 1,000 shifting faces, Tzeentch, the architect of fate, laughed quietly. Every book, scroll, and rune in his crystalline palace rearranged themselves, spelling a single name across the air. Ainz Ooal Gown. He whispered the name as one might savor a secret. An intruder from beyond all possible futures. Neither warp nor matter. A being that commands certainty, and thus threatens all change. Fascinating. 1,000 demon scribes wrote and erased his name in the same instant, but the runes reappeared, unbidden. Tzeentch's laughter turned into unease. Across the Imperium, the four gods gathered for the first time since the birth of the Eye of Terror. Their forms, massive, incomprehensible, converged upon a single storm of darkness that pulsed like a dying star. Khorne's voice was thunder. If this being defies the warp, he defies war itself. I will crush him. Slaanesh smiled. You will try, as you always do, and he will make art from your failure. Nurgle chuckled, thick mucus splattering the void. No, my loves. I will embrace him. Perhaps he only needs infection. But Tzeentch's many eyes burned. You fools. You cannot touch him. His magic is outside causality. His necromancy feeds upon what is certain. He is entropy with purpose. For a moment, silence ruled the gods. The warp's tides grew sluggish. The Eye of Terror dimmed like a dying ember. Then, movement. In the center of their gathering, the air tore open like a curtain. Through it stepped a figure draped in black robes, his staff glinting like obsidian carved from nightmare. Ainz Ooal Gown had entered the warp. He did not burn. He did not twist. The madness recoiled from him, screaming like a wounded animal. Khorne leapt forward, his axe splitting galaxies in its swing. It struck Ainz's barrier and disintegrated into dust. Slaanesh hissed, covering their perfect face as the heat of his presence burned through illusions. Nurgle reached out a hand, his gifts of plague and decay turning to ash before touching him. Only Tsench dared speak. "What do you want, stranger?" Ainz looked upon them, his voice calm, almost sorrowful. "I have no desire for your realm. I came to warn you." "Warn us." Slaanesh purred. "The material universe no longer belongs to gods of impulse. Humanity is mine now. I have ended their suffering and their worship." The warp convulsed. For the first time, the Chaos Gods felt fear. "Without faith," Ainz continued, "you starve. Without souls, you fade. Soon, the warp itself will sleep. And when it does, I will decide which of you deserves to awaken." The gods roared as one, and the warp itself split under their fury. But Ainz simply raised his hand, and silence fell again. "You ruled chaos. I bring stillness. You fed upon despair. I offer peace. I am the god of certainty." He turned and vanished, leaving only a lingering echo, cold, merciless, final. And in that eternal silence, for the first time since time began, the Chaos Gods prayed. Not to win, but to survive. The galaxy had gone quiet. Where once the endless drums of war thundered, there was only stillness, so complete it felt like the universe was holding its breath. The Astronomicon no longer shone, and without it, humanity drifted like blind children in the dark. Warp storms collapsed into ribbons of dying light. The stars themselves seemed muted, their songs devoured by something colder than void. From orbit above Holy Terra, Ainz Ooal Gown gazed upon the cradle of mankind. Below him sprawled the corpse of empire, cathedrals split open, statues of the emperor eroded into dust. No hymns, no banners, no blood. Only silence. He descended. The surface was a wasteland of petrified worship. Where once billions had prayed, their forms stood frozen in mid-genuflection, turned to black crystal, each soul trapped in perfect preservation. Ainz walked among them like a shepherd through a field of monuments. His skeletal reflection glimmered in their still eyes. Behind him marched the legions of Nazarick Ascendant, reanimated custodes, corrupted psychers, and sorcerers remade as his disciples. The ground trembled with the rhythm of their synchronized steps, yet the sound was hollow, absorbed by the dead air. At the shattered doors of the imperial palace, a single figure waited. A broken man wrapped in a tattered cloak of gold, the last High Lord of Terra. He fell to his knees. "My lord, we thought the Emperor eternal. We thought faith would protect us." Ainz's voice was calm, cold as eternity. "Faith is noise. Order is silence. And silence, now, belongs to me." He passed through the palace gates, his shadow stretching over the throne room. The golden throne itself, once the heart of mankind's survival, lay dark and silent. The Emperor's withered body slumped like a forgotten relic, his soul long extinguished. Ainz stood before him, staff raised. "You ruled through suffering. I rule through stillness. We are not so different, you and I, only that I succeeded." The runes of the staff of Ainz Ooal Gown flared once, and the corpse of the Emperor turned to dust. The psychic backlash rippled through the galaxy. Every inquisitor, every space marine, every astropath felt the sudden absence of divinity. No more visions. No more warp. Only emptiness. For a moment, the galaxy was truly at peace. No hunger, no mutation, no screaming warp echoes. Every demon, every god, every soul was quiet. And then, the stars began to fade. World by world, systems winked out like dying candles. Deprived of the warp's energy, the Imperium itself began to unravel. Reality depended on chaos. Without it, there could be no life. Albedo appeared beside her master, her face serene though the universe trembled. "My lord, the structure collapses. Shall we preserve Nazarick?" Ainz looked into the blackening horizon. For the first time, doubt flickered behind his empty eyes. Perhaps perfection was never meant to exist. He turned his gaze upward. The void responded with silence. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of extinction. From the edge of the dying stars came the last resistance, a ragged fleet of survivors, sisters of battle, Astartes, Eldar, even fragments of Tau and Orc warbands, united in hopeless defiance. Their ships, burning and broken, aimed for Terra one last time. Over comms came a single human voice, crackling through static. "Monster of bone and pride, you've killed gods, but you can't kill will. Humanity will scream until the end." Ainz raised his staff slowly, and the stars themselves bent toward it. Then scream. A light brighter than a billion suns erupted, engulfing the last fleet. When it faded, only dust remained, not drifting, not moving, suspended in timeless stillness. Ainz stood alone before the end of all things. Nazarick floated like a cathedral in an ocean of dying photons. Demiurge and Shaltir knelt behind him, awaiting command. But no command came. Instead, Ainz whispered, so softly that even the void hesitated to carry his words. "In seeking to save the living from pain, I have stolen their meaning." He lowered his staff. The sigils dimmed. For the first time since his arrival, the great overlord of death felt the weight of eternity pressing back. "So this is victory?" The void answered with silence. As the last ember of the galaxy faded, a single figure remained, skeletal, robed in black, unmoving beneath a dying sun. His crimson eyes dimmed, and with them, the universe exhaled one final time. And in that instant, between existence and oblivion, a faint, mocking whisper echoed through what was left of the warp. "Even gods must dream, Ainz Ooal Gown." Then, nothing. Only silence. Eons passed. The galaxy that once roared with fire and faith became an ocean of frozen dust. The planets no longer orbited their dead stars, they drifted, weightless, as if forgotten by creation itself. The warp, once a tempest of madness, had solidified into crystal calm, no demons, no gods, no dreams. But in the black expanse, something moved. A whisper. A ripple. A single vibration, trembling through the quiet. Not light, not sound, memory. It began as a pulse deep within what was once Terra, buried beneath miles of glassed rock. Slowly, impossibly, the ash began to stir. From the remains of the imperial palace, a faint crimson glow ignited, the same hue that once burned in the eyes of Ainz Ooal Gown. And then, the whisper spoke. "All empires fade. All faiths break. Yet meaning endures." It was not Ainz. It was something born of him, a shadow of will left behind when even death itself was conquered. His presence had merged with the bones of reality, woven into the last threads of existence. He was no longer a ruler or an overlord, he was the echo of final purpose. Across the void, fragments of the past shimmered like ghosts. The echoes of space marines chanting battle hymns. The laughter of Eldar farcers predicting their own demise. The snarling of demons who once fed on sin. All sounds layered into one timeless symphony, the requiem of the 41st millennium. And then came a light. Soft. Blue. Alien. A crystalline ship, shaped like a blooming flower of glass, emerged from the far edge of the universe. Within it were beings not of flesh but energy, observers from a cycle beyond understanding. They scanned the remnants of a once great cosmos and found only the imprint of a god's ambition burned into every atom. Their leader, a radiant figure of light, spoke in tones that rippled like song. The last echo of the previous cycle. The one who silenced chaos. Another replied. He consumed gods and burned meaning. Yet his essence lingers. Fascinating. They hovered before the remnants of Nazarick, still suspended in the void, untouched, unbroken, glowing faintly like an ember refusing to die. The gates were sealed, the guardians still kneeling in eternal obedience. Inside, time did not flow. The beings reached out with tendrils of light, touching the surface of that floating tomb. And then, they heard a sound. A faint, hollow knock. Once. Twice. 3 times. The gates of Nazarick creaked open, and from within came a cold wind, carrying the scent of forgotten worlds. A figure emerged, skeletal, tall, cloaked in shadowless black. His eyes no longer glowed crimson, but pale silver, reflecting nothing but emptiness. Ainz Ooal Gown stood once more. The beings of light recoiled. Impossible. The void was absolute. Ainz raised a bony hand. The void, he said softly, was never meant to last. It merely waits for another to command it. With a gesture, the ashes of the galaxy stirred, stars reigniting in faint glimmers, the first breath of a newborn cosmos. He turned his gaze toward the infinite horizon, where nothingness awaited reshaping. In the end, he whispered, even death must serve the living. And with that, he walked into the abyss, each step leaving behind fragments of new suns, fragments of new worlds, fragments of new life. Behind him, the light beings watched, silent and reverent. One finally murmured. He is not of our cycle. He is the cycle. The last image seen before all light vanished again was Ainz's silhouette standing between 2 realities, one that had died, and one just beginning. His voice echoed across eternity. I sought to rule forever. Instead, I became forever. Then came the silence once more. Not empty this time, but pregnant with creation. A whisper, older than time, passed through the newborn stars. The great tomb of Nazarick endures.